Today, we're going to take a look at the U.S. House seats that Democrats are going to be targeting in the upcoming midterms. We'll get the background, we'll look at the list, we'll take a look at a few of the districts and which ones might be the closest to flipping. So let's get into it. We've got House Democrats unveil 35 Republican targets for 2026 midterms. And apparently the one person that best represents this entire article is going to be freshman rep Ryan McKenzie from Pennsylvania. So everybody knows the Republicans have a narrow U.S. House majority. Democrats only need to flip a handful of seats and they're going to regain control. So let's read some of this article here, and as always, all the links will be down below in the description. It says here, the list from the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee includes traditional swing seats, but also includes districts that Donald Trump carried by up to 18 points in November, underscoring confidence in their chances of flipping the House more than 18 months out from the midterm elections. Now, pretty much every cycle, both sides put out their list of U.S. House targets, and every time they're going to have some pretty lofty goals. It's not going to be worthwhile putting out a list with only 4 or 5 names on it. You got to go a little bit bigger and have at least a couple of dozen seats that you're targeting. Now, it's still way too early, but the national environment historically should favor the Democrats at least a little bit. A little bit is really all they're going to need to flip it. Now, it could end up being a big blue wave and they flip a few dozen seats. And there's also a chance that the Republicans defy the expectations and they maintain control of the House. It's unlikely, but we're going to see what happens. It also says here House Republicans are running scared. It's another line that both sides put out every time. When you're in the minority and it looks like you have any kind of momentum, you're always going to say the other side is trying to run away from everything. And then it says the DCCC is already busy recruiting compelling, authentic candidates in these key districts who will serve their communities, not Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Now, candidate recruitment, that's going to be a big deal. Democrats have got to be able to reconnect with working class voters across all different races. They should focus on economics, but they should also realize that some of the cultural stuff does matter to a lot of these voters, and that's where there could be some significant Republican appeal. They also have to hope that in some of these bluer districts, that more establishment Democrats are not going to be primaried out by progressives. Now, in a lot of cases, I do think it would be a good thing for the Democrats to shake it up and have some more outsider candidates come into the race and get totally away from the establishment. But the risk there is we've seen that a lot of times on the Republican side. They recruit anti-establishment candidates that are outsiders. However, they're usually a lot more controversial, and then in the general election, they're going to be weaker. It's definitely cost the GOP some races in the past. Possible the Democrats could do the same thing. Republicans also have to go on defense. They should be looking to avoid a lot of divisive primary challenges. So it says here that the bullishness follows a pair of special elections for deep red House seats in Florida last week, in which Democrats cut their losing margins by roughly half from November. That's true, Democrats have done a lot better. It's absolutely a concern for the Republicans to not get complacent. They might struggle without Trump on the ballot. That's going to be a big warning sign, but the good news for them is they've got a lot of time left. Economic sentiment and views on the economy have plenty of time if they're going to go back up. The other concern here for the Democrats is they did overperform in a lot of special elections back in 23 and 24. They thought that was going to carry over into the presidential election, but that turned out to not be the case. Now, it also says here last month the DCCC named 26 Democratic incumbents to their frontline program for vulnerable members, and that's going to heavily overlap with the Republican list of targets that they also put out last month. So it's still pretty early here for the next election cycle. Both sides could always update these lists in a few months. The response from the Republican side is they dismissed the list of targeted seats, pointing to the Democrats' record low favorability ratings. That's true, the Dems are totally in the toilet, but if you're in the toilet and you're still overperforming in special elections, then how bad could it really be? That might say more about Republican turnout than for the Dems. So we know the Republicans are going to dismiss it. That's what every side is going to do. So then we've got the full list of seats. Most of these are the ones you would expect. There's a few scattered around, but we've got 3 in California, 3 in Florida. There's going to be 3 in Michigan, Ohio, as well as 4 in Pennsylvania. Now we're going to look at some of these, but are the Democrats likely to win all these seats? No. But are they likely to at least win a couple? Yeah, probably. Now there's going to be a lot of different factors as to which of these seats are the most vulnerable. The candidate quality, the incumbency, the national environment, all that stuff is going to matter. But let's switch over here to Wikipedia. This is a good place to start because it has 69 races that were decided by a 10% or less margin back in 2024. So it starts off with the absolute closest margin. That was in California's 13th. That was a pickup there for the Dems. And then it goes all the way down the list, all the way up to a 10% margin. Now, of these 69 races, only 23 of them were won by the Republicans. So technically, Democrats are more overexposed on these close races. They've got 46 of these. But again, the national environment should most likely be in their favor. Now, we can look at some of these these individual districts. But if we go back up here to the top, theoretically we could say if the Democrats did 1 point better in 24, then they would have only flipped 2 seats. That's going to be Iowa's 1st and Colorado's 8th. If they did 2 points better, then they would have another 4 seats. That's going to go up here to Nebraska's 2nd. So the Dems doing 2 points better than they did in 24 does not seem unreasonable in the upcoming midterms. That alone would give them the majority. Again, it's way too early to confidently gauge the national environment, but I would say that any of these seats that were within 5 points in 24 are going to be vulnerable. And that's technically in both directions. But if the Dems shape up to have a pretty good night, they could be looking at some of these seats that were decided by more than 5 points. And it's possible there's a seat that does go all the way up to 10 points that they could be looking at. Now let's look at a few of these individual districts. The closest one last time that the Democrats lost is right here in Iowa's 1st. This is in the southeastern part of the state. It's highlighted right here. Now you can see here the median household income is $71,000. The ethnic breakdown here is 83% white, and the Cook PVI rating is R+4. Now if we go down here and look at some of the recent results, we can see that Trump won this district 53-45. So kind of a comfortable win there for Trump. But if we go back and look at some of the recent election results, the margin here was very tight for incumbent Marionette Miller Meeks. She only won by 0.2%. Back in 22, she won by a much more comfortable margin of almost 7. In her first win in 2020, it's not shown right here, but she won that one by only 6 votes. So she's used to some close races. So this is likely to be near the top of the list on potential pickups for the Dems. Now it is Iowa, this is Trump territory, but this district is really not overwhelmingly red whatsoever. Again, Cook PVI has it at R+4. Now what does that mean exactly? Well, we can actually get on Cook and see what they say. Now they have updated this for 2025, and the PVI stands for Partisan Voting Index. And here's how they explain it. It says a PVI score of D+2, for example, means that in the 2020 and 2024 presidential elections, the state or district performed about 2 points more Democratic in terms of two-party vote share than the nation did as a whole. Anything within a half a point is considered even. So the high turnout presidential election numbers, they're going to compare those to the entire country, and that's how they're going to get their numbers. So if we go down here to the map, you could hover over any one of these districts, and it shows you what the old rating was in 23 and the new rating in 25. So for example, this district went from R+18 to R+15. So it got 3 points bluer. Now again, this is using data from both 2020 and 2024. So if you hover over a lot of these districts, you'll see that a bunch of them did get 1 or 2 points bluer. It's not going to be everywhere, but it's going to be in a lot of different places around the country. Now, there's also some places that did get noticeably redder. Those are going to be in states that had decent lurches toward the right. For example, New Jersey or California. If you look at some of these districts, you can see that it went from D+4 to R+1. Now, Adam Gray, the Democrat, won this district, but because it's technically an R+1, Republicans should have been able to win this seat. So you could go around and look at any other district in any other state. One other place to point out is going to be in South Texas. These districts moved toward the right. This is the Henry Cuellar district. It went from D+3 to R+2. Next door, this went from R+1 to R+7. That's held by a Republican. The other one held by a Democrat in South Texas is going to be in the 34th. That went from D+9 all the way up to even. So the 34th and the 28th, those are going to be districts that the Republicans are going to be looking to go on offense in the future. So that's a little bit of a look at the Cook PVI. It's not the most useful thing to take a look at, but it doesn't hurt either. So a few other districts that the Democrats are going to be targeting. We've got Colorado's 8th. This is the newer swing district located north of Denver. The median household income here is $92,000, and the ethnic breakdown here is white at 51.7, Hispanic 38.5. So what happened in the recent election? Well, Trump won at 50-48. But before that, in the statewide elections in 22, Democrats won every office. So according to Cook PVI, this does have an even partisan lean. If you go down here and look at the House results, it was first won by a Democrat, Yadira Caraveo, in 22. She won by less than 1 point. There was also a Libertarian candidate on the ballot that got almost 4%. But in 24, this time, Gabe Evans, the Republican, flipped it. It wasn't by much, but that was an unexpected pickup for the Republicans in Colorado. Democrats obviously going to be looking to get this one back in the midterms. In Pennsylvania, we've got the 1st district, and this is mostly going to be Bucks County, the Philadelphia suburbs. Now, this is held by a Republican, Brian Fitzpatrick. The median household income is $108,000. That's significant. The white population here is about 80%, and it has a Cook PVI rating of D+1. In the 24 election, it did vote for Harris 50-49 and also supported Bob Casey by 1. So at the top, it's a tilt blue type of district. district. But what about in the U.S. House? Well, Brian Fitzpatrick won his race by almost 13 points last time, so it wasn't even close. It was the same thing when Biden ran in 2020. It was almost the exact same margin. Now, it was close for Fitzpatrick back in the blue wave of 18. He held on by about 2.5 points. So it's clear that Fitzpatrick has a decent amount of crossover appeal. Democrats just need to get their presidential support to vote for the Democrat in the House, and they're going to be all set on flipping this. Let's look at another one. We've got Nebraska second. Now this is the Don Bacon district. The median household income here is $80,900. It's a majority white population at 67.8%. The Cook PVI rating here is now a D+3. It used to be even. So let's look at the recent results. In 24, this supported Harris by about 4 points, 51 to 47. It also supported the independent candidate Dan Osborne in the U.S. Senate by 12 points. In the special, though, it did support Pete Ricketts by about a half a point. So this district is not friendly to Trump. Bacon is considered moderate. And let's take a look at his election results. Well, Bacon is no stranger to winning very tight races. His last one was just under 2 points. So there's no question Democrats are going to try to finally take down Bacon. He seems vulnerable every time, but he seems to somehow hang on, even in the blue wave of 18. You'd think that he would have been finished, but he won by also 2 points. Now, if you start going back to 2018, some of the boundaries were different in a lot of these places because of redistricting. It's not even for sure Bacon or any of these other candidates are definitely going to run again, but if Bacon runs, it's going to be fun to see if he's able to hang on one more time. And we'll look at one more of these. We've got Arizona in the 6th district. This is held by Republican Juan Ciscomani. Here the median household income is $73,000. It has a white population of 63.1, Hispanic at 24.7. But let's see what it did in the recent election. Well, it did vote for Trump by 1 point, 50 to 49. It also supported Ruben Gallego, the Democrat in the Senate, 51 to 46. So with an even Cook PVI rating, let's see what happened in the recent election. Well, it was about a 2.5 point win here for Ciscomani. He just cracked 50%. It's a little bit wider than what he got in 2022. So those are a few of the places that Democrats are going to be on offense, Republicans on defense. There's easily another 5 to 10 seats you could take a look at. But the last thing we're going to do, which might help you find out which districts could be more competitive, these are the crossover districts. This shows you if each district supported a different party for president and in the U.S. House. For example, at the top, we've got 13 districts that were won by Trump, but in the U.S. House, they crossed over and voted for a Democrat. Now, that could either be because the Trump brand is not appealing to these voters, or it could mean that some of these Trump voters did not fill everything out down ballot. So again, theoretically, Republicans should have been able to squeeze some more U.S. House seats out of these Trump districts. But Democrats managed to have success in all of them. That's going to be good news for them going into a likely favorable national environment. But on the flip side, there's only 3 districts that Kamala Harris won that were won by Republicans. We took a look at 2 of them, and Nebraska's second with Don Bacon, and Pennsylvania's first with Brian Fitzpatrick. The other one on here is going to be New York's 17th with Mike Lawler. It voted for Harris by 0.6%, but Lawler won by 6.3%. So even though there's a lot of polarization out there, the candidates, the campaigns, the funding, all that still has an impact. So if Republicans were going to go on offense, they'd be looking at this group of seats right here at the top. But for this, we've got the 35 seats that Democrats are going to be targeting in the upcoming midterms. Again, you can look at the full list here. Some of these I think are completely reasonable. Others I think are way too much of a stretch. But you never know. It's always better to set your sights further just in case. There's plenty more you could say about these individual districts and the individual candidates. But that's what the comments are going to be for. So let me know, which of these districts do you think is most likely to flip? How many of these targets do you think Democrats could reasonably flip? Let me know what you think down below on your way out. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.